Howdy. Do you want to learn to fly so you can become a pilot? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain the first step, and in the series, I'm going to explain all the steps in which you need to know and to be able to start your journey in learning to fly and become a pilot. So, hi, I'm Dr. Andy Moltar. I'm a flight instructor, a CFI IIMEI. I used to work as a corporate pilot, and now I'm a professor of aviation. So in these videos, in this video specifically, I'm going to be talking about how to obtain your medical certificate. But in the next set of videos, I'm going to talk about finding a flight school, figuring out how to pay for your flight training, all the pilot gear you need, all the books you're going to need, and how to study and succeed in your flight training. So there's three different types of medical certificates. There's first class, second class, and third class medical certificates. So the third class medical certificate, it's good if your goal is to fly for fun. So it's, you're at that point in life where you have a little bit extra money and time, and you just like, hey, you know what? I want to become a pilot. And so, all you're going to need is a third class medical certificate. It's the minimum certificate you need as well is if you want to become a flight instructor. And so with the third class medical certificate, it just depends on how old you are as to how long it'll last. So if you're under the age of 40, it'll be valid for up to 60 calendar months, which is 5 years. Or if you're 40 years or older, it'll be good for 24 months. The next medical certificate is a second class medical certificate. So it's the minimum medical certificate you need to be able to get hired to fly for money. And so if let's say you want to fly for a Part 91 company, flying a business jet for some rich guy or gal, um, or there's other jobs out there that you get paid to fly, the minimum you need is a second class medical certificate. And a medical certificate, it's good for 12 calendar months, regardless of your age. And so if now the regulation is that you can serve as a first officer at a Part 121 airline, so just like any normal airline. You can serve as pilot in command for anybody that's not a Part 121 airline, and then if you want to be an air traffic controller or flight engineer, you also have to have a second medical certificate. But yeah, regardless of age, it's good for 12 calendar months. And then the last medical certificate is the first class medical certificate. So this is a medical certificate you should get if you want to fly professionally. So you will not get hired by the airlines without this. And, like I said earlier, you could get your second class medical certificate if you're not going to fly for the airlines, but I would just go ahead and get the first class medical certificate. Even if you're not planning on flying for the airlines now, you might change your mind and you'll regret not getting the first class medical certificate to begin with. Now, if your goal is to fly professionally, before you even start flight training, I recommend you get your first class medical certificate. Now, as we see here, if you're under the age of 40, then the first class medical certificate is only good for 12 months. And then if you're 40 years or older, it's good for 6 months. But this is for first class privileges. If after that 12 months, if you're under the age of 40 or you're at the age of 40 or older, what happens is it remains a first class medical certificate, but then you get the privileges of either a second or third class medical certificate, just depending on your age and how long it's been. So let's say you're 40 years or older and it's been 6 months, you have your first class medical certificate. Then after 6 months, you get the privileges of a second class medical certificate, which was 12 months. So, that includes that first 6 months of a first class medical certificate privileges, and then you get another 6 months of second class medical certificate privileges. And so, of that, so now we're at 12 calendar months, and then you still get another 12 calendar months if you're over the age of 40. Now, if you were under the age of 40, when we're looking at first class, that's good for 12 months for first class privileges. But then, for third class privileges, it's still good for another 48 months for a total of 60 months. So, like I said, if you're going to start your flight training and you want to be a professional pilot, go ahead and get your first class medical certificate, because what'll happen is, you're going to start your flight training, and that's going to take, however long. Um, there's this one YouTuber I've been watching lately. His name is Trent, Fly with Trent, and he got his pilot certificates all in like 90 days, which is unfathomable, but he accomplished it. But more likely, your flight training is going to be about, a year, 2 years, or longer. But if you get your first class medical certificate, you'll go through all your flight training, and then you can start working as a flight instructor. And remember, it's still a first class medical certificate, but then you still get third class privileges, which includes allowing you to fly as a flight instructor. And then eventually you're going to build up enough flight time that you can then go to apply for the airlines. And that should be within that 60 calendar months if you're under the age of 40. And by that point, all the airline cares about is, because they're not going to interview you unless you have at least a first class medical certificate. It doesn't matter if it's been more than 12 months, but they just want to know that you've qualified for a first class medical certificate. And so if you show up and you get hired, well, then you go to renew your first class medical certificate, and then now you're good for another 12 months under the age of 40, 6 months, 40 years old or older. And another reason why you want to get your first class medical certificate to begin with is to know that you qualify. Now, the criteria to qualify for a first class medical certificate is a bit more stringent than is for a third class. And so you don't want to spend, up to $100,000, $200,000 on your flight training, going, with a third class medical certificate, and then you go to apply for the airlines and you get your first class medical certificate, and you find out you actually don't qualify for the first class. Well, then you just spent a whole bunch of money for something that cannot happen. Now, that's unfortunate for its own reasons, but you still at least know and can save a lot of money ahead of time. Now, whether you want to go ahead and get your medical certificate, before you start your flight training or immediately after you start your flight training, it doesn't really matter. I would want to find my flight school first, but you could certainly get your medical certificate before you even go talk to any flight schools. But I would recommend going to talk to a flight school first, which I'll talk about in the next video. All right, so then you need to find an aviation medical examiner. So an aviation medical examiner, these are medical doctors, typically like family physicians that are authorized by the FAA to help pilots get their medical certificate. So you have, but before you even do that, you have to fill an application on MedExpress. Now, if you go to my website, moltaraviation.com, and I've left a link in the description below, I have a link to both MedExpress and to an AME lookup tool. So here, we'll go to my website, moltaraviation.com. All right, so here we are, moltaraviation.com. And so just to give you a little bit, show you around a little bit before I show you the AME lookup tool in the MedExpress. So this is the home page. Not much to it. You can get my book if you want, How to Become a Pilot. And so, yep, I got my book right here, How to Become a Pilot. I go over everything you possibly want to know and more in this video series. All right, so here I have some pilot videos. So I link all my YouTube videos here to my website, so you can just find them if you're ever on the website. I have a whole bunch of pilot gear that I recommend. So a lot of this I personally have, or I know pilots that have this gear and recommend it. So all of these books you want to get. Got different headsets I recommend. And I've already made a video for this ASA HS1 aviation headset. It's the most affordable, best headset you can get for the beginning of your flight training. I'll go ahead and leave a description for that video, a link to that video in the description below. But just other pilot gear you need: iPads, knee boards, flight computers, flight bags, sunglasses, logbooks, and just other random stuff that you need. So here we are on the FAA resources webpage. And so the first one that we come up to is FAA MedExpress application. So you're going to want to click on this and it'll take you right to the website. So this is kind of like the terms of service. You hit the accept button, and then you create you request an account, and then you'll go in and fill out the application for whichever medical certificate you want. And then at the end of the application, they're going to give you a confirmation number that you want to save, and you're going to provide it to your AME. So now let's go find an AME. So right next to the MedExpress application, we have the FAA AME locator tool. So to find your aviation medical examiner. So we click on that. And so the first thing you want to do here is select the type of designee. So you want an AME, aviation medical examiner. You can look based on location. So let's just look in Dallas, Texas. Whoops. Dallas. And then go down, Texas. And then we'll just see, okay, so do we want a first class? Do we want a second class? Whatever. So we'll just go ahead and put first class. Hit the search button. All right, let's see what comes up. So here's 3 designees in just Dallas, Texas alone in the county. I can tell you there's a lot more in Dallas, Texas. So in that whole Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I just put Dallas, Texas because I'm from that area. But yeah, wherever you're at, let's put in some random place. Billings, Montana. Huh. There we go. Okay, where's Montana? Billings, Montana. Let's see what comes up. All right, so all the way out in Billings, Montana, out in the middle of nowhere. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. We've got Matthew Francis Hartman, and so if you live out in Billings, Montana, out in the middle of nowhere, well then you can go to them. That's their phone number, and you can call them. So all right, well, thanks for watching the video. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how you actually find a flight school. There's the AOPA Flight School Finder here, but I'm going to go into a lot more detail about how to find a good flight school. So if you haven't already, subscribe so you get notified when I come out with that video. All right, you take care. Bye. Thanks.